die 1,000 deaths than to see my mother's dress on that spoiled, selfish cow!
Hi everybody, it's Gracie here, coming at you from her bedroom, which has been updated. The last couple of weeks, well, month really, have been super fucking busy for me. I have been inundated at work. I have been doing podcast guesting, editing. I have been on a Twitch live program with actual Jake on Twitch, discussing Star Wars. Just been super busy. And then I went through a hurricane when I was like, oh, I'll finally do a follow-up. And then we went through a hurricane. So that didn't work out at all. I've kind of been thinking over the past month, what direction I want to take with this channel. And I honestly think that I want my focus to be more about the positive things. Like still keeping it about media and movies and TV and stuff like that, but talking about fun stuff, like influential movies that really shaped who I am as a person, or even talking about media as far as YouTubers and TikTok and all of that fun stuff and Twitter. And I thought, for the first thing I'd want to discuss is how much I love the movie Ever After. And if you listen to the podcast, you are probably well aware of the fact that I fucking love Ever After, probably more than I love Lin-Manuel Miranda. But what I love about Ever After is that it is by far the best princess movie, Cinderella movie in the world. I don't give a fuck. It's my favorite retelling of Cinderella. It's words cannot describe how much I love this movie. Drew Barrymore's accent is probably the worst thing about it, though. She's not English, and her English accent really flexes a lot when she's doing it. But yeah, I have a love affair with Ever After. I think the first time I watched it was when I was like 8 years old, and it was a Cinderella movie, so of course I'm totally into it. I was super big on princesses. It was just, that was my life. And I remember just loving her and loving all of Dougray Scott, and I wanted Henry to be my boyfriend, even though I had no real cognizant understanding of what a boyfriend and girlfriend really were, because I was 8. But, I still did. And I love the fact that it's not really anyone saving her. I always liked that, and I liked that there was no magic in it, and I loved that she loved books. Funnily enough, watching Ever After again, I realized this is probably the root of when I really started enjoying Tudor history. I absolutely adore Tudor history. It's fascinating to me. It's bloody, it's gory, it's awful and atrocious, but you really had some powerful women that came into being under Tudor history, like Anne Boleyn, who defied a lot of expectations and was a woman before her time, and that's the reason she was executed, for being a witch, because she was opinionated and brass and just full of confidence and joy. I fucking love Anne Boleyn. I think she's one of the most maligned women in history, which is typical of a lot of powerful women in history. They always are portrayed as sluts or witches, or being promiscuous. The whole, like, fucking her own brother thing definitely did not happen, but, And the reason for my love of Ever After and my love of the Tudors is because in Ever After, she reads Utopia by Thomas More, and Thomas More was a chamberlain to Henry VIII. He was executed. And now Thomas More is a you know, a man of his time, very problematic in a lot of ways, but a lot of the philosophy in the movie really stuck with me and I think helped me to become the person I am today. One of my favorite quotes is when she's actually quoting Sir Thomas More's Utopia.
If you suffer your people to be ill-educated and their manners corrupted from infancy, and then punish them for those crimes to which their first education disposed them, what else is to be concluded, sire, but that you first make thieves and then punish them?
And being a secular humanist, seeing that and hearing that, I think had a lot of influence on me to be a more empathetic person and to understand that things happen for a reason. And that kind of thinking, even from decades and centuries ago, still has a lot of truth to it today. When you look at institutionalized racism and you look at men being imprisoned, mostly men of color, being imprisoned for nonviolent offenses, or committing crimes that are based a lot of the times in poverty. You know, theft and drugs and stuff like that usually has a lot to do with poverty or with people of color, and they get punished for it. The same with bail, for example. You know, people get charged a bail that is far outside of their abilities and get stuck in jail cells for days, weeks, years, waiting on trial for something as innocuous as not giving up a backpack that was supposedly stolen. And hearing those words as a kid, I think really just helped me to understand that not everything is exactly what it's portrayed to be, that there's a lot that you don't see, and that all of these things that happen for a reason. And it's just that wisdom that really, really stuck with me. And I would honestly say that Sir Thomas More has probably been super influential as far as my life and how I came to have the feelings that I do as a liberal, progressive feminist. I think it helped me knowing this and then coming from a very conservative background. And Ever After really was kind of like the start of that for me. And, like, of course it also has romance in it. And I appreciate that in the end, it's not Prince Charming coming in on his white steed. It's Danielle. Danielle is able to save herself from this horrifying monster of a man who had every intention of raping her. And again, that's an implication I didn't get as a kid, but I get now. It's just one of those movies that I just consider so timeless and so perfect and just absolutely beautiful. And I could quote it backwards and forwards. A friend of mine and I think one of the last few times I watched it, a friend of mine and I was at her house and I was staying over, and she put Ever After in, and her boyfriend at the time came in, and we were quoting the movie, you know, like, I would rather die 1,000 deaths than to see my mother's dress on that spoiled, selfish cow. Like, I know this movie backwards and forwards. Angelica Houston is an amazing stepmother as the Baroness of Radamila-Digance. I can't remember the actress that plays Marguerite, but she's perfect. I related a lot with Jacqueline, especially the whole, of course not, mother, I'm only here for the food. And I really like the fact that Jacqueline ends up, like, defying her mother's expectations and being friends with Danielle and helping her at her moment of need, while Marguerite was just so vapid and shallow that she's like, oh my god, I'm gonna be just like my mom. And it's not without its problems, God willing, and the timeline of it is pretty fucked up when you consider that Da Vinci's alive but divorce is a thing, and Thomas More is alive or was alive or had, I don't know. It's just funny that there's that interesting weird time shift where they're in France but not really, that kind of thing. Uh, but it's just a movie that really influenced me when I was younger, and it's one that I hold deeply dear in my heart and always manages to bring a smile to my face. I can watch that movie 20,000 times and I would still feel exactly the same, and it just fills my heart with joy. So I was wondering if there was maybe anything that you guys like to watch or listen to, or anything that brings you back to your childhood and just fills you with a sense of nostalgia and happiness no matter how many times you see it or hear it or watch it or whatever. I'd really like to know that. And again, this channel is going to be going through a weird transitional phase. I'm actually thinking of possibly doing some focus on made-for-TV movies, because our podcast is basically movies that had wide release, and so it'd be really cool to kind of just look at really bad made-for-TV movies like Disney Channel original movies or something like that. Lifetime, oh my god, Lifetime movies are an absolute treasure trove of trash, but it's the good kind of garbage, you know? Let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, or what kind of content you'd actually like to see. Would you like more in-depth reviews? Would you like more commentary? It's really up to you. And I hope you have a fantastic week, and hopefully, God willing, I will see you next weekend for another edition of whatever this is. Bye!